Alright, Com 110. This is my third take on this video. I've gotten halfway through this lecture 3 times. So if my energy's like dying, I'm sorry. But I'm going to give you the best I got for romantic relationships. Alright, so this is the lecture on romantic relationships module. Last part of this module before the observation paper and the journal. And then we got one more module and then we're done with the semester. Alright, so understanding romantic relationships. This is one of the biggest parts of what people appreciate learning and understanding in this class is how to better manage and negotiate romantic relationships. So let's first off do it by understanding what is liking and what is loving. Liking is a feeling of affection and a feeling of respect that we have for our friends. When you like somebody, you are in the beginning of loving somebody, which is a much more deeper and much more intense emotional experience. And this emotional experience consists of 3 main things. You have to have the 3 things. If you don't have the 3 things, you're not really loving. First one is intimacy. Really, you have to be close with this person. They have to know you. You have to have done a lot of good self-disclosure so they can really know you. You also need to care for someone, like really care about them, care about the best of them, want the best for them in all spaces and places. And lastly, you have to have a sense of attachment. Are you together? Are you in it? Are you in it together? If you don't have the intimacy, you don't have the caring, and you don't have the attachment, you have a dysfunctional form of loving that's not going to last for very long, right? So, example of if you just have passion, it's not going to last very long. If you just got commitment, well, then where's the love? And if you got intimacy, well, you like them a lot, but where's the passion? You need these 3 things for something to be a full-on actual relationship. So different types of love is, the first one is passionate love. This is the love that we see everywhere in media. This is what we see everywhere in society. And this is a state of an intense and emotional longing for union and being with, being with one another as much as possible. This type of passionate love breeds excessively idealistic thinking where you're like, this person completes me, this person is the one, and there's only the one, just the one. All cultures feel this deep and passionate love. There is no age or gender differences in this feeling. So if you have young teenagers and they're in love, and you're like, you don't know nothing about love. Well, they do know about passionate love because anybody can experience passionate love. It doesn't matter. Any age, they're going to feel the passionate love. This is also very integrally linked with sexual desire. There's a feeling of wanting to be with each other a lot. Sometimes several times, right? But it's all about the sexual desire, right? You get the sweaty hands and your fingers pulse with desire and you're like, yeah, I want this, right? Problem with this is most of this stuff is about the emotions you're feeling within yourself, right? I'm talking about feelings you have in you. And I'm not talking about this other person, right? I'm not talking about this person and who they really are. I'm talking about the feelings this person inspires in me that I'm feeling, right? So it's negatively related to relationship duration because the relationship's all about my feelings and how this person is inspiring my feelings. But it's not really about the person. It's about the feelings I'm having, which are inspired by this person. But it's not really this person. It's the feelings I'm having. And right, can feelings last forever? No, feelings change over time. Feelings don't last forever. Feelings are very temporary. If you ask me why people cheat as much as they do, is because they're chasing passionate love. And chasing passionate love means you're chasing someone that inspires feelings within you, but this person can't always inspire feelings with you because they're a person, and everybody does something that's annoying or not cool or stupid from time to time, and you're gonna get annoyed by something somebody does. It's funny because when you're at the beginning of a relationship, you might find this weird quirky thing awesome. I love this weird quirky thing. And then when you start to try to develop the relationship with something more mature, something deeper, you're like, God, I don't really like this weird quirky thing. This weird quirky thing is one of the things I hate the most about you now. You see how it starts off as novel and cool, and then you're like, actually, like, could you just be regular like the rest of us? Again, it becomes problematic over time. So this passionate love, for it to last, it must evolve in some way to a different form of love. Otherwise, the relationship's not going to necessarily last really long. The next type of love, it's a much more mature type of love. This is the companionate love. This is an intense form of liking that is characterized and defined by deep emotional investment and deeply intertwined and connected lives. This is what hopefully passionate love develops into. So you can actually stay together. So you can actually find someone that is a whole them and you're a whole you, and you become together and you're like a unit. But again, you still need the individuals like to be a unit. You can't like look for someone to complete them because they're not a whole thing, right? This is much more common in long-term relationships, and we don't see this stuff in media so much. We don't see companionate deep love lasting over like generations and generations through kids. We don't see the examples of those things. Like when you're looking at romantic comedy movies, you do not see companionate love. You see passionate love because we connect with the feelings of passionate love a lot easier than we do connect with the feelings of companionate love. A great example of what companionate love looks like is if you've heard the song Honey, I'm Good by Andy Grammer. He sees someone that inspires a passionate love in him, but he's like, you know what? I understand you're just a source of a passionate love that I'm seeing, but I have something real, something deep, something meaningful that I need to get home to. And I'm good. Thanks. Right? Like he's willing to pass by the short-term feeling thing for the real thing, the real person that's at home. And so there's different types of romantic love. There is, it's storage. I don't know how to speak Greek. Like I wish Vaso was here so she could tell me like how to say this correctly. These are love that is built on friendship. The basis of their relationship is their friendship. I would say my partner and I are based in friendly lovers, right? They say the best relationships start off as friends and like solid friends, not just like we were friends for 2 minutes and then we started like hooking up. Like really you were friends first and then the relationship evolved into something different and better. Right? There is agape, which is a form of forgiving love, where you can see each other's faults, you forgive each other for your faults, you can see the person and who they aspire to be, you cheer them on in aspiring to be the thing, but you also need to see example of the work too. If you don't see them working to become the better thing, then maybe that relationship's not like, it's not going to last super long, because everybody needs to evolve, and like for couples and relationships to work, you have to evolve together and you have to constantly work at being together. Like without work, relationships don't thrive. It's just like friendships. If you don't like pour into your romantic relationship, it's not going to grow, and you keep gotta making the pot bigger and bigger so you can be bigger and more whole people over time. Then there's mania, which is obsessive lovers. Obsessive lovers that are just like all about each other. Where are you? How come I haven't heard from you? Like they think about each other night and day. They really don't hang out with their friends as much as when they're like dating. Beware of being an obsessive lover. I used to be an obsessive lover. I would neglect my friends when I was in an obsessive love phase. And it's not good because remember, friends, like they're the support. They're the things that I need to be a supported whole person. And if I just get obsessed with my lover, then my friends aren't going to be there for you because I'm not there for my friends, right? So don't just be obsessive. Enjoy your relationship. Be about your relationship, but don't just be all about your relationship. There should be something else in your life going on that you should be excited about too. Then we got practical lovers. These are people that might be on a similar life journey that tend to get together, and that's the basis of the relationship. So maybe people with like political goals, maybe Bill and Hillary Clinton at this point could be more practical lovers because they're both into politics and trying to make the world a better place. But I don't know how much. I'm not saying they don't love each other. I just don't know how much like romantic love they got. I'm not aware. Maybe it's more pragmatic. Then there's the ludus, the game-playing lovers. If you get really mad because people don't text you back for 4 hours, life happens sometimes. Sometimes people can't text you back 4 hours. Or if you get super pissed at being left on red, like it's okay. People can read things and then they need time to respond to stuff better. Or if like you get hurt, so you're like, oh, okay, you're going to go talk to your ex-girlfriend. Well, I'm going to go hang out with my ex-boyfriend, and we're going to see how you like that. Don't do that stuff. Don't be playing those games. If you feel like you need to play those games, I would urge you to be much more responsible. I would urge you to be a whole and mature person and just tell them like what's going on, right? Like, don't be like, you don't have any time to hang out with me. Like, everything else is more important. Like, what's the need there? There's no need. Like, the need is, hey, I missed you. I haven't seen you in a while. I'd really like to spend some time with you. Be this person, not this person, right? Just be brave enough to say, I missed you, and I want to hang out with you. They'll probably want to hang out with this person a lot more than this person. And then lastly, Eros is the romantic lovers, and we kind of talked about some of that romantic stuff already. Key elements in romantic relationships. A romantic relationship is a chosen involvement in which both participants agree and perceive the bond is romantic. So key elements of romantic relationships, you have to both perceive yourself to be in a relationship. If you perceive this person's in a relationship with me and they do not perceive themselves as being in a relationship with you, you're not in a relationship, Jack. Like, you're just deluded and you need to check your perception because that's not correct, right? Both people have to agree they're in a relationship together. They're also bringing a form of diversity with them. They're bringing different backgrounds, different feelings, different thoughts. There are different parts of their social identities. There's different parts of who they are. And like the more of those things that you can have that are value-wise in line, the better it can be. But you can be incredibly diverse people, but as long as your values are the same, that's the more key indicator of success. If you have incredibly different values, it's going to be hard to mesh together as people. And then choice. We have to understand that these are choices. We choose to initiate involvements with people. And contrary to widespread belief, love does not just strike us out of the blue. We choose to engage in a relationship. We choose to be involved in a relationship, and we choose to be there, right? So a big part of a relationship is dictated by the choice to be together. Commitment. You have to have a form of commitment to each other. Like if you're dating, you have to keep dating, right? Otherwise, you're not dating. If you're hooking up, you have to keep hooking up because that's part of like whatever's keeping you together. If you're serious partners, you have to be choosing to be serious partners and stay serious partners and do all the things that serious partners do, right? Because that's part of what we want to manage. Tensions are also part of these things, right? Relationship dynamics are going to happen here. There's going to be the tension of openness versus protection. There's going to be the tension of autonomy versus connection, which I talked about in the friendship stuff and the family stuff. These are all issues in romantic relationships too. You want to be a grown-ass man, but you want to be taken care of like a baby when you're not feeling well. Again, complicated. What do I even do for you in this situation? If you're like, I want to know everything, but you're like, I don't want to know everything, right? Like this is the problem that we're working through and trying to deal with. And then one of the other things that's really difficult in relationships is we want a feeling of newness, novelty, interesting and new experiences, but we also want predictability. We want to know we can rely on stuff, right? Like it's hard because like, you know, you want to like be with all these different people. Like I get that, but then you want one person to be there for you. You can't have both of these things. These things are in tension with each other. Like what matters more to you? And then like you can do novelty things to keep your relationship light, fun, and interesting. Maybe you go on trips, see different types of movies, do different types of experiences together, and then talk about those things. So then you can inject novelty in your relationship. This is where people, I think, choose to get a little bit more adventurous with intimacy choices later. I think you know what I'm talking about. And then lastly, you have to communicate. Communicating is also super important. You have to make sure you're talking face-to-face over the phone. You have to have that form of communication and connection so you can get to a place where you really love and appreciate each other because you're telling each other you love and appreciate each other. You're being positive. You're being there for each other. You're supporting each other. All that good old stuff, right? So here's some factors that are part of what can happen when you have attraction to someone. So the first one is proxemics. If you've ever been attracted to somebody at work and your friends was like, really? That person? And you're like, yeah, you're having what's called a proximity infatuation. This means you're into this person because you happen to be around this person. And you're just into them because you're just forced together over and over. And this forced together over and over really makes a difference in how you see this person as attractive, because of the fact that you're together more often, you've learned more about this person, and then there's been the opportunity for you to have this proximic attraction. But you have to understand, sometimes it's just that you're together and maybe you're not the best fit before. Professor D used to date Professor D lived in a house and got a new roommate, and his new roommate was very attractive, and we did not have very much in common. But I was young and this person was very attractive, and so the proximity effect happened, and that 6-month relationship was a wild ride, and probably would have never happened if we weren't roommates. See how the proximity infatuation thing happens? Is sometimes we just like people because they're right there, and you need to know that's the thing to really get a sense of who this person is and how well connected are you, and do you really like each other, or do you just think each other are hot? Physical attractiveness, it's definitely a thing. You want to find someone physically attracted. We want to make sure that people are physically attracted to us. So physical attractiveness is something that's really important. Although I will say physical attractiveness is a learned thing. Like, we learn different things are attractive. Like, for example, like I'd say back in the 40s, tattoos were not considered really attractive. Now we think tattoos can be hot based on your preferences or background, or maybe you think they're disgusting. But either way, like, this is a learned like that happened over time. In the 1800s, like, thicker women were considered much more attractive than skinny women. So, like, look at, like, what do you really find attractive, and what were you taught was just attractive, and what can you learn to really be attracted to when it comes to physical attractiveness? Because all those things were taught to us, and that's some of the stuff that's attractive now is going to not be attractive in the future, right? Like, back when I was in, like, middle school, like, really, like, wavy hair and bangs and big hair was, like, really popular. You don't see that anymore, right? But I used to think it was hot because it was back then. Now it's just different, right? Physical attractiveness. Also, similarity. You need some things in common. You need to have common interests. It is true that the more things you share in common, the more movies you like together, the more songs you like together, the more music you like together, the more things you have in common, the easier it is going to be to have a relationship with this person, because you have similar interests. You can talk about similar things. If you both like completely different stuff, you're not going to have a great relationship for a very long period of time, because you're not going to be that frankly interested in these things that this other person likes. Also, there's reciprocal liking. Sometimes we like people just because they like us back, or they like us first, right? So somebody likes us and you're like, I don't know. And then they're like, yeah, but I really like you. And you're like, I don't know. Like, you make me feel good because you like me. And, like, I kind of like how I feel around you because you like me. And so sometimes we just like back because people liked us. But then you need to think, do we really like this person? Do we really have the same goals in mind? Do we really have the same life path in order? Do we have the same values in order? If you don't know your top 10 values, you need to sit down, stop the video right now, and write down your top 10 values. We talked about this in Belief and Attitudes. Like, you need to know your top 10 values. If those values are roughly similar, you got a good shot. If those values are incredibly different, you're screwed, my friend, because you don't have the same values together, and eventually you're going to have a values conflict. And you all saw how bad values conflicts get. And then also, there's resources. So we sometimes are attracted to people because they have access to different resources than we do. So sometimes a person is in a job that we want to have, or sometimes people are rich and you think that's awesome. Or remember, I used to date people just because they were good looking, so people could be like, oh, he must be great because she's good looking, which was stupid, because I just needed to be happier with who I am, right? Not just be like, oh, he must be cool because she's hot. So stupid. We do the dumbest things, don't we? Gosh. And it feels like I've done all those dumbest things first and foremost. So with proximity, be aware of the mere exposure effect. A great video about that in the slide for that. With physical attractiveness, we see people that are beautiful as good, but we need to get to know them and make sure that they're competent, intelligent, as well as well-adjusted. Otherwise, we're going to be setting ourselves up for heartache. We also tend to, there's a weird thing that tends to happen is we tend to form long-term relationships with people that are similar to us in levels of attractiveness. Usually when there's people in differing levels of attractiveness, we're like, what? Why are they with that person? So we tend to just be around people that are of similar levels of attractiveness. Although, not necessarily always, right? Depending on how we can change what we see and feel attractive really is. Remember, that things we're taught, so we can teach ourselves and we can dwell on things to, really value something else a little bit more. We can find someone being of service or kind or sweethearted as another form of attractiveness that we can develop over time by focusing on that thought or idea. And then when we see that in others, that comes out a little bit more. Again, we're generally going to be liking people that are liking us back. The birds of a feather effect happens there. And then social exchange theory is that we are drawn to those that offer benefits to us with very few associated costs. We want more benefits, less costs in order to have a good relationship. Equity is the balance of benefits and costs exchanged by you and the other person. When inequity happens, that's because one person has over-benefited and another person has under-benefited. That's where, again, you get into somebody and you see this, I think, where there's a guy that dates a girl that's just like the trophy girl, but she's not really a full person. Or you get the girl that dates a guy and she dates the guy because he's easy to control and he has a great job. Those aren't good relationships. People can be in those relationships for a long period of time, for as long as everybody's willing to being over benefited or under benefited. But at some point in time, people get found out in those situations, and I would not want to be found out. I want to be loved for who I am, not found out or treated as less than for a long period of time. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to somebody else. Technology and romantic relationships. Despite its convenience, technology invokes a lot of tension when it comes to dating. We know that online self-presentations can be false. I guess y'all do it with Tinder, but that photo of where people take the very manicured look. Let's see if I can give you my most manicured look. Maybe that's the picture that I put up, and it's not really the faces that sometimes you'll see with the freeze frames on these videos. Remember, you might present yourself a certain way, but at the end of the day, who you really are is behind this presentation of you, right? So you're like, hey, just look at this, just look at this. Eventually you're going to be like, wait, who is the, I want to know who's really behind you, right? So don't worry so much about presentation. Don't worry about the meat suit and how good the meat suit looks. We want to be a good person inside the meat suit, so somebody is willing to really love us. Strive to accentuate attractive attributes and ask a friend to assess where you are with attributes that could make you a truly attractive person, not just look attractive. We don't want to be with someone that just looks good. We want to be with someone that is good. And in order to be with someone that is good, we got to do our work to be good people so we can be good enough to deserve someone that is good later, right? And we always need to be engaging in that self-improvement process so we can keep being worthy of each other through our effort in trying to become better people. All relationships undergo stages marked by distinctive patterns in partners' communications, partners' thoughts, partners' theories. And so we have different stages where people are come together. So during the initiation stage, you size up a person that you just noticed. You draw on their available information, their attractiveness, their body type, their age, their ethnicity, all the things you can see. And then you determine whether you find this person attractive based on these attributes. Your primary concern at this stage is to portray yourself in a positive light. You want to be seen good, right? Because you're just initiating. You're like, hey, look at me. You want to see me? I'm like, oh, let me flip my hair for you so you can see me. Right? This is where you're just getting a sense of whether you're liking somebody or not, right? It's the initiating stage. If you've drawn someone in through the initiating stage, you move to the experimenting phase, which allows you to share a little bit different information. Where do you come from? What's your major? What are your topics of interest? You're able to share yourself in a very safe and very controlled fashion. This is like kind of the casual dating phase of relationships. And a lot of relationships don't get past this area because this is where you start to share who you really are. And then people are like, not really interested in who you really are, which is okay. Because also, if they're not interested in who you really are, maybe you shouldn't have been interested in who they really are. And then you're saving yourself from long-term heartache. It's okay. You need a lot of bad first dates to be able to get to the person that really is like worthwhile. And like understand it's okay to be on like a series of like bad dates. Like it's just part of the process. You're not supposed to just like date 4 people and figure it out. Like you always need to be practicing, like learning how to do relationships, what you want in a relationship, what you need in a relationship, and hopefully you should be having some fun sometimes, right? So relationships are characterized by two things at this point. You need to be practicing so you know who you are, what you want, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what strengths you want, what weaknesses you want in someone else. And then you need to hopefully be having fun. So if you're not having fun, at least you're practicing, right? You're always getting value out of the practice part and learning. If you're having fun, that's great. But like if there's only just fun, you still need some practice there too, right? I think if you're in a relationship where you're not having fun and you're not learning anything or you're not growing anyway, maybe it's time to find another relationship. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if someone moves on from a relationship with you, it doesn't mean you suck. It just means it wasn't working out and it's time to find something different. It's okay. It's not you. They don't know all of you because they haven't shared all of you with him yet. Intensifying. All right. So this is where you become increasingly more and more intimate. You start having more deeper feelings of attraction. You might be saying, you might call each other like sweetheart names like honey or sweet baby or poppy. I don't know what you call each other. You might call each other a we more frequently. A strong sign that your relationship is intensifying is a expression of commitment, right? So if you get into a define the relationship area, you're moving from intensifying to integrating. In the integrating stage, you and your partner's personalities kind of become one. This is where you might wear like the him and her shirt, or you have sayings, or you kind of like become that disgusting couple in some ways because you're so the same. This is our favorite song. This is our restaurant. This is like our thing. And you become really hard to do things with alone because you're always with this person, right? So you're always double dating. Your friends are like, we don't hang out as much, right? It's because you're integrating a little bit more. And then the ultimate stemming together phase is bonding. It's a public ritual that announces to the world that you two people are committed to and bonded with each other. You can see how, right, when you get married, this is the public declaration of who you are, what's going on, and how you're coming together as people, right? So again, if you want more on this, the coming together video, I think, is very helpful for this, and it helps you understand stuff. Now, stages of coming apart. Coming apart is also differentiated by stages too. I use the first word. That's kind of funny. So understanding that there's a process in which people come apart. You don't just come apart. There were stages of coming apart. And if you were like, oh my God, I never saw it coming, you just didn't look to see that you were having this happening. You weren't watching. You were lying to yourself. And then because you lied to yourself, you weren't able to really see the truth of things. In differentiating, partners share differences as well as similarities. But in differentiating, you start to emphasize beliefs, values, or attitudes that are different from you and your partner, right? I can't believe you did that, or we are so different. Now, most healthy relationships will have periods of differentiation. This happens from time to time. It's, do you keep going down the road of coming apart, or do you just notice the differences and learn to appreciate the differences? That's the difference. Got a lot of different in that one. Circumscribing is now when we start to see the differences. We start saying that the person is this way because of the differences. You start ignoring them. You spend less time talking together. You actively begin to restrict the quantity and quality of information you begin to share with your partner. You create safe topics or safe zones where you only talk about certain things in certain ways, right? This is because you're starting to see them as kind of problems. So another thing that could be a common remark for subscribing is, don't talk to me about that, or let's not talk about that anymore. You're not willing to talk about those differences and work on those differences. You kind of just see that person as that problem, and you're not like working on what can we do to navigate or figure out that problem. Stagnating is what happens when a relationship stops growing. That's where you're not watering your plants anymore. Both act like communicating is pointless and will only lead to further problems. And people in stagnant relationships feel a sense of resignation. They feel stuck. They feel trapped. They feel like things aren't going anywhere. However, they might stay in that same relationship for months or even years because you know it's not good, but you're like, I'm too scared to be single. We've been in these relationships before too. It's hard because like we're just too scared to let go. We're afraid of being alone. We're afraid this is as good as it gets. And, it's part of what stagnating looks like. Then in avoiding, both of you decide that you can no longer be around each other. You begin to physically distance yourself from one another. Some people communicate avoidance to their partner. I don't want to see you anymore. Other people do it indirectly. Y'all do it like when you ghost people. Again, don't ghost people. Just tell people where you're at with stuff. Be open and honest enough to be like, hey, this relationship's not working anymore. I appreciate the time that we had, but maybe it's time to call it a day, right? Then you move from the avoiding where you're like, there's not a problem here. Everything's fine. Hopefully they'll just pick up on I don't like them. Be brave enough to just terminate. Get to the place where you just officially end it, right? And don't be a jerk about it. Just be like, hey, we're in a space where I think we need to look at being apart. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I didn't appreciate the time that we had together. But I don't feel like this relationship's serving you. I don't think I'm serving you as a partner. And it doesn't mean we couldn't be friends. We might need some time apart before we can be friends. I would highly recommend time apart before you try to be friends, because you're just going to yell at each other a lot because you're not dating, however weird that is. So when you get to avoiding, maybe really deeply look at the avoiding and why the avoiding is happening, and then have the bravery to eventually potentially terminate your relationship if you need to. It's okay if you need to. It's part of the deal. It's part of like you learning what you need to know so you can eventually be with the person that you're hoping to stay with for the rest of your life. So we need to maintain our relationships. We can harness our communication skills and our efforts to maintain relationships. So some of the things you can do to make sure that you are keeping your relationship in a good state is, first off, be positive. Be positive about the person. Talk positive about the person. Think positive about the person. If you're one of those people that talks a lot of trash about your partner to your friends, that's going to be a problem long term for you being in very helpful relationships, right? You should be positive about that person. You should be thinking positive things about the person. If you want this relationship to work, you need to bring your positivity to this relationship for it to work. If you start getting negative on things, you're beginning to damage the relationship, and then you're beating up on it, and you're like, why is it not working? It's because you're fighting it. You need to grow it. You need to feel good about it. You need to have some positivity in which it can grow. Part of the reason why I think you're continuing in this class with me is because I stay in a positive relationship with you. So understand that this is the most important tactic you can do, is think about your person in a good way so you can stay with your person. Also provide insurances. You need to have supportive messages that you give to each other about your relationship, what's going on with your relationship, how you feel about your relationship. Saying I love you is really important. Showing you love the other person is really important. Giving assurances that they're really someone that you care about deeply is very important. We always need to hear I love you. We always need to hear you're important to me. Again, part of the reason why you like me is because I tell you how badass that it is that you continue on in this class. Even through all this stuff, you need to be able to do that with your love partners too. Let's see what else you need to do. You need to share tasks together, right? So my partner and I, I really enjoy grocery shopping. I think my partner thinks I go grocery shopping too much because I think I just like doing that with her. Like, I like the idea that we're co-creating our week's meals together, co-creating a future together in the time that we spend shopping. But sharing tasks is really important. Don't let one partner just clean the house. Both people need to clean the house. If someone cooks, someone should do dishes, or maybe both of you cook and maybe both of you do dishes. Share those things together and both be in it. There also needs to be a sense of acceptance. You know who this person is. You know their strengths. You know their weaknesses. You're okay with those weaknesses. If it's character flaw stuff and they're working on those things, then you reward the positive effort and progress towards those things. Don't like beat or shame someone if there's something about their personality you don't like. Instead, reward them for working on this thing, getting into a better space. You never want to like give negative reinforcement. You always want to give positive reinforcement in a relationship to help people grow and become the person that you see in them, that you know that they could be. But they need your help in getting to that place too. You always need to be self-disclosing what's happening, what's going on with you, how are you feeling about things. And we need to be more honest than anything else, right? If you're like, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit scared because like your coworker's really good looking and it seems like you have a lot of chemistry together. Like if you can say, I'm feeling scared because I'm a bit threatened by this relationship and I'm having some feelings of jealousy, you can have a calm, rational conversation about that rather than being like, well, Billy's so cool. Like, what's up with that? Or like, I think you must think Sandy's so great because you're always spending the time together. Let's be honest with stuff. You also need to do some relationship talks. I would recommend once a year having a state of the relationship talk where you talk about like what's good with the relationship, what's problematic with the relationship. Do it before you're mad because that's the best time to talk objectively about the relationship. Because then you can get a sense of what's going well, what's problems, what are some potential future hurdles, and it's a great way of practicing relational maintenance. And then also, you need to make sure you're part of each other's social networks, that you're happy when they spend time with their friends. If my partner goes spend time with friends, I want to be encouraging of that. Remember, she needs the support, right? Why would I want her just to have me as support? It's not going to work. You want people that are like positive friends in this person's life, and you want to encourage them to have those relationships. Which is what I would want my partner to be like really excited that I go play flag football and understanding there's something about football that does something for me as a person that allows me to bring something positive into the relationship. Managing relationships across distance. Sometimes long-distance relationships have been found to be more satisfying and stable because it requires more work, I think. So suggestions, find a lot of different ways to use technology to communicate. Again, I'm doing that with you here. Focus on positivity, focus on assurances, and then avoid overly idealistic expectations about the eventual reunion. Part of that is you don't want to make a reality. You don't want to make a potentiality, which is bigger than reality. Boy, that was dope. I just put that together. So don't make like a potentiality bigger than a possible reality that could happen when you come together, right? Like make it good. All right, the dark side of relationships. So things you need to know about the dark side of relationships. First off, betrayal is a problem and it's going to happen. And same thing with friends is we need to be aware that betrayal is something that we always need to be looking out for in relationships. And I don't focus on the betrayal part. I focus on what is the thing you have to worry about. So betrayal is not an issue, and that's trust. What can you do to keep trust in a relationship? What can you do to make sure that you have the ability to share open and honest truth, whether it's good, bad, or ugly with somebody else? What can you do to focus on that trust with others? Romantic betrayal goes against expectations and it causes a partner pain. I would ask you, please don't cheat on anybody. Just have the decency to end the relationship if you're really that interested in somebody else. Don't be afraid. It's a hurtful thing to do. I think a lot of us has been betrayed. I'm sure we're going to see it in the betrayal area of the discussion boards that are coming up. Sexual infidelity and deception trigger a sense of devaluation and loss. And there is no simple solution or skill set to fix this problem. What you need to be is working on yourself, working on your issues. Remember, if you're in a relationship and you start like focusing on somebody else that you're having attraction towards, like you're still going to have attraction towards other people even in a relationship. Do you focus and dwell and give power to that attraction? Or do you kind of take it out of your mind? Do you focus on what you have instead, right? That's up to you. You get to choose how you think, right? Be strong enough to do that for yourself. And instead of cheating on people, just be open and honest and like in the relationship. Like it's much better than cheating on somebody else. And I don't think there's any magic thing that you can do to keep people from cheating on you. I think you can just be an open and honest and forthright and trustworthy enough person that you can inspire non-cheaters to be more around you. That's the best advice I can give you. If you're in a relationship where you're always worried about betrayal, there's something there maybe. And either the something there is something within you where you're having trust in people problems and you should talk to a counselor about it. Or maybe there's behaviors that are happening with somebody else that you need to have a conversation about. Because there's such a thing as an emotional betrayal too, right? Where people are in a like emotionally cheating relationship because they're starting to invest those intimacy feelings into somebody else. It's not just about sex. It's also about emotional betrayal too. And you have to look out for those things. You have to self-monitor it within yourself and then be open enough to talk about some of those things. Another thing is jealousy. Jealousy is a protective reaction to a perceived threat to a valued relationship. Self-reliance is the most effective way to deal with jealousy. And that's understanding that you are a person of value, that you see yourself as a person of value, that even if there is a threat, you have a sense of confidence and calmness within yourself to know that you're a person of value, knowing you're bringing something good and strong and solid to a relationship. Because, like, let's be honest, like, there's going to be more attractive people out there. There's just going to be funnier people out there. There's going to be more clever people out there. There's going to be richer people out there. Like, there's going to be a million threats that could potentially come to us. What we can do for us is have a sense of calm self-confidence within us that is assured of our value and assured of the work that we're bringing to a relationship, so we don't have to worry so much about betrayal. But we do need to watch out for wedging. This is where people will use a form of communication to try to insert themselves between partners. And wedging works like this, is they try to find a little gap and they exploit the gap to try to bring the two apart. So watch out for wedging. You have friends that will attempt to wedge you away from your partner. You've tried to wedge somebody else away from somebody else. Remember, with all these downside things, we do them too. Like, even having like lustful thoughts about somebody else is a form of betrayal, right? Like, I'm not saying you should run to tell your partner about this, but I think you can be honest with that this is a form of betrayal and like work to try to stop thinking those thoughts, so then you can be in a healthier, happier relationship in the future. Relational intrusion is a violation of one's privacy by a person who desires a relationship. So sometimes what people will do when they're afraid that they can't trust someone is they'll attempt to control them. And that attempt to control them includes like monitoring and controlling, will invade their privacy. If this happens after a relationship, this can easily turn into stalking. But you have to just trust somebody. You can't just control them into being what you feel like is safe enough for you to rely on. You got to learn to relax. You got to learn to surrender. You got to learn to let go. And just trust in this other person and understand that that's part of the deal too, right? I think attempting to influence power and control on a relationship is the beginning of a cycle of violence that can happen with anybody potentially. Last one, dating violence affects millions of people. It knows no demographic boundaries. Men can be victims of dating violence. Women can be victims of dating violence. And again, right, it all starts with power and control. When someone's like, you can't do that, like, there's a difference between, like, I don't want you to go flirt with your coworker at lunch is different than you can't see her anymore. You see the difference? You could talk about the concern, you could talk about the need, but laying ultimatums on people is the beginning of power and control. And when you're trying to influence power and control, I think that's the beginning of violence. And so understanding this is very important. I am also, with this video, going to upload a picture of the wheel of power and control, and it's a good thing to know and look out for. You're going to do these things. I've done some of the things on that list. What we would do is look at trying to reduce our own behaviors of power and control in relationships for others, so we can just trust in other people more, or surrender to the fact that love is not something that's predictable. Love is not something that's controllable. But I think when you surrender to things, or you surrender something to bigger than yourself, you put yourself in a space where you can be in the best possible place. So with that is my romantic relationships 45-minute video. So remember, you can speed through this if you need to. You can put the settings on 1.5 and listen to it a couple different times. But what I need to know from you is, did I talk about everything you need to hear? What questions you have about anything else that I can answer for you? You can email me those questions. We can do a chat. We can schedule a chat with my office hours and things like that, so I can make sure that you're getting everything you need to hear from me on these things. But with that, remember, if you want to be in love with somebody, you got to love somebody else first. Good old you. Once you really love you, somebody else can love you too. All right? So if you're single right now, that just means you're working on loving yourself enough so eventually somebody else can love you. And there's nothing wrong with that process. All right? So with that, again, this is the last piece of what we need for this module. So I'm really happy to see that you're putting in the work and putting in the effort to make it through this class. And I'm super proud of you. I think you're doing awesome. And I'm looking forward to hearing your writings, hearing you talk about some of the things that we're going to address more deeply in class. Thanks. Take care. Be blessed.